Hey guys, welcome to Mc Gregor Med. My name is Andreas and I'm a second year medical student at Riga Stradens University here in Latvia. Today I want to talk about the first week, the first day, the first semester of studying medicine. In my mind before I got started, it was such a big mountain to overcome. I thought I would spend my whole life in the library, in class, and I would never have any free time. But that expectation was not quite what reality was like. So today I want to go into depth as to why it is not what we expect, but reality looks a lot different. I think the best way to go about this is by first talking about what subjects I specifically had in my first semester and what they were about, how much time I spent in class and preparing lectures, and then how much time I spent studying for exams, tests, and experiments. And then lastly, concluding it all by showing you that I actually had a lot of free time and talking about how much time you actually have in first semester and that your whole life isn't about work. What I also want to say is that I'm a very, very average student. I didn't do particularly well in school and I wouldn't follow the normal medical student's life cycle of being an ace at school and being super prepared for everything. So I would say this is a very realistic outlook on what first semester can look like for a very normal person. Let's go through the subjects. So the languages that we had to learn. We had to do a first semester Latvian and Latin. Latvian obviously to learn the local language of the country we live in and to sort of get by on a daily basis, and also to create a platform on which we can speak to patients eventually in hospital. And then Latin, the old language of medicine. It is a very difficult subject if you had no Latin in school or you come from a country where Latin is not part of the language. I myself, coming from South Africa, we did not have any Latin background and it was extremely difficult, but it's manageable. Let's move on to the sciences. So the sciences are molecular biology, physics, chemistry, human anatomy. Right, so molecular biology is pretty much what you did at school. I would say the last 5 years of high school, and you just go over it very quickly. Physics, I would say, is exactly the same. It's to a high school level, maybe just a little bit deeper to teach you the basic principles, and it's built on in second semester. Chemistry is also like high school. It's pretty much the first few subjects is like recapping high school in 3 months when what you did in 5 years. And then the first really exciting subject, which is human anatomy, where we start learning with the bones, then the ligaments, and then the muscles. These are probably the 3 easiest sections of human anatomy, and it's a good start, but it is a lot of learning and it's a lot of learning off by heart. Let's look at the social sciences. So we had history of medicine and bioethics. History of medicine is looking into the Greek mythology, the Hippocratic Oath, and looking at into the history of medicine and how it sort of has built its way up to where it is now. And then bioethics, which was quite an interesting subject because we discussed and argued about ethical conundrums, issues, and tried to find a solution to scenarios based on scenarios that were either created by the teacher or some old scenarios that have actually happened in the past. And we sort of scrutinized these to find an ethical solution. And lastly, we have the one practical subject that you'll have, which is first aid, which is the recap on resuscitation, basic life support, and how to care for people in acute situations. And it is not much more than a normal first aid course. So you feel a little bit medical, but not really. A normal week for me in first semester was 3 to 5 hours of class a day. That was spread quite awkwardly across the day. So some days you'd start at 8 and only end at 5 and only have 3 hours of class sort of in the whole day, but with awkward gaps in between. And then in the evenings, it was about 2 hours of lectures. The good thing about the lectures was that it was pre-recorded and that you could do it in your own time. And normally the lectures would come out 1 week before the class that is relevant to that lecture, and you can work on it in your own time. I think the biggest hurdle in first semester is the amount of work that you have to get through each week. It is a lot, and if you have a very bad strategy on how to deal with this work, it will take really, really long. I was lucky enough to have studied before I've come to medical school, and I have sort of honed in my study skills. I'm not the most productive student, but I'm definitely very, very efficient in what I do. So some students will spend the whole night preparing for classes while writing long, extensive summaries and working through sometimes what one can call unnecessary material. It is important to scope and to realize what the subject is about and spend the energy where you need to. There's no point in spending 5 hours on 10% of the work. So The first thing you have to learn in first semester is how to structure your life that you're going to work through your time efficiently, not necessarily have a super productive day, but when you do work, that you spend those hours working very, very hard. This leads me to the next topic of how much I actually studied in first semester. This is a very subjective thing to talk about because some people study 10 to 15 hours on subjects where I spend very little time on. And this is because they either don't grasp the scope of what they must do, or they are overstudying, which is a very big problem in first semester. The first thing you have to deal with is your efficiency. There is a high workload and a large mass of material, and it's important to sift through the material and have a look at what is important and what is not important, and be effective with what you want to do. Many students study 10, 15 hours a day and still don't get the outcome that they want. Take the classes as time to recap, not the time to study. So prepare for your classes, prepare properly so that you really know what's going on, so that when the teacher talks about what's going on, that you know what they're talking about and you can ask specific questions of things that you might be worried about. This all boils down to the subject that we most want to talk about, is how much free time did we have, or did I have specifically? So I was pretty efficient in first semester when learning specific subjects at specific rates and filtering out what might be important, and also using sort of old school material to help me get forwards. And I ended up having quite a lot of free time. But it's important to notice that when you have free time, and some people might have more, some people might have less, to use the free time. Go for a walk. Don't half study, half play. Many people go meet in a cafe with their friends and they want to study together, and it's this sort of idea of I spent 3 hours in a cafe and I worked really hard but I actually did nothing, and then you feel like you've studied but you also feel like you haven't studied, so you feel like you need free time but you need to catch up on work, and it sort of becomes this sort of battle in your brain that you're not going to win. If you want to work hard. If you see it's not working and today you're unconcentrated, or for 2 hours you're not concentrated, go out, have free time. Working inefficiently is just not going to work. So if you do free time, go on excursions, go for walks. Latvia is a very dark and cold country in the winter. I'm coming from South Africa, and my first winter here was scary, I must say. It was dark, there was lots of snow, and I had to get used to this new day rhythm. I used every opportunity I could go outside because I noticed that if I didn't go outside every day, I got more and more unhappy in my cave, and I looked outside the window at -20 and just didn't want to do it. So the moral of the story is work hard, play hard. And in the end, if I look back at first semester, it really wasn't that difficult. That mountain that I made out in my mind, it ended up being a little molehill that I could just flatten quite easily. And even if you fail one subject or fail 2 subjects, you get a rewrite. You know, as long as you get through the first semester, at some point it's okay. So this big pressure that you build up in your mind, it's not real. And what people talk about and say that, you know, studying medicine is the most crazy thing that you'll ever do and it's so difficult, I don't agree. I think that it all comes down to what you want out of it. If you want to be a straight A student and want to know absolutely everything, yes, life is going to probably be a bit more difficult than my life. But if you want to just do well and get through and understand the material, it's just about your efficiency. And the most important thing is work hard, play hard. All right, to finish it up, I hope that I've taken away the fear of first semester, the fear of starting to study medicine. And since my lamps and lights have gone out at least twice and I've had to plug in all my chargers, I've done about 60 takes on each section of the video and my mouth is super dry. I hope that I've left you guys with a good video that you can enjoy. If you guys want any other videos or any topics that you want me to discuss or show you, please leave it in the comments, and thank you for your support. I'll see you in the next one.